You can't get enough of GBO2, but at the same time, it's frustrating. You get punished for pushing too hard on the front line. Your playstyle doesn't sync up with your teammates sometimes. No matter what you do, it's just not good enough to keep up that win streak. Let's change that. Hey there, I'm Too Much Wong.
And I'm Spiker.
And welcome to our Carry Yourself series. We'll cover beginner, intermediate, and advanced tactics to help you improve and carry yourself with confidence.
Over the years since GBO2's Western launch on PlayStation, we've gathered these tips through raw experience in both pub matches and clan matches, as well as excellent advice from strong players in the community.
We've tested these tips with brand new accounts and reached A+ in a single week. If it can work for us, it'll definitely work for you. So let's jump in. GBO2 is a team-oriented game. The more you help your teammates by making openings or providing cover fire, the more you'll increase your team's chance of winning. On the other hand, selfish play with no regard for your teammates could ruin your team's chances of winning.
GBO2 can also be chaotic and confusing for new players to jump into. That's why we decided to come together and make this series, to give players a solid foundation to play from and help those feeling lost find their way in this game.
Let's talk about suit comp. The recommended mix for a 5v5 is 3 generals, 1 raid, and 1 support. For 6v6, it would be 4 generals, 1 raid, and 1 support. Or you could go with 3 generals, 2 raids, and 1 support. We'll talk about 4v4 team comp in a different video. Generals are well-rounded suits that act as the front line of the team and can move decently well while taking hits as needed. The raid moves right behind them and pushes past everyone once there's an opening to the enemy support. The support is behind everyone else but not too far, otherwise they can't be saved easily when an enemy raid attacks. If you have too many raids, your team has power and speed, but they're all glass cannons. 1 raid should be enough even if there's multiple supports on the enemy team. A raid can take out a support with a single combo. Too many supports and the enemy raid will be able to break through the front line quickly and wipe your supports out. On top of that, your team won't be able to move quickly across the battlefield. If your team is filled with all generals, you won't be able to quickly take out supports that are hitting your team hard.
Be willing to take on roles as needed to provide your team with a strong comp. To do so, head to the hangar. Once you've selected your mobile suit, you should consider the right parts for the job. Select your suit and hit Customize. You're given 8 spaces to work with, and various close range, mid-range, and long-range slots depending on the suit. Your goal here is to make the best and most efficient use of them. So, a good basis for each role goes as follows. Raids benefit from boost, generals from defense, and supports from range damage mod and or reload parts. While it's good to have a balance of the different types of parts, focusing on one area first can be beneficial in surviving out in the field. Let's get a little bit more in depth here though. Starting with raids, focus on thruster and range defense parts. It's important for the raid to stay on the move, as this class is the most disadvantaged on the field. Take note, most of the enemy team will be generals, which have a 30% damage advantage against you. Typically raids have the most mobility, and can be difficult to stop on the move. However, you will be shot at and focused by these generals quickly. Range defense will be the difference between a quick death and survival, while extra thrust can help you skirt a corner if you need to escape for a breather. Now for generals, start with defensive and health parts, then thrusters. Generals are the front line, the basis of your team. Without them, a team wipe will be close behind. The team benefits from generals surviving as long as possible. Defensive and health parts are essential to this goal, with thrusters coming after. For 450 cost and below, focus on your HP and ballistic resistances. At 500 cost or more, focus on resistances, especially melee, and a mix or focus of beam and ballistic, then HP. Finally, supports. Start with range damage mod parts, reload or auxiliary parts, and reserve your melee slots for thruster parts. Supports can benefit from extra thruster to help avoid the raid and keep up with your team on the move. Range mod and reload parts, or auxiliary, help the support hit hard and as often as possible. They're the ones covering the team, plugging up holes in the formation from range, stunning vulnerable targets, and following up on ally downs. Careful not to stun your allies while they're in mid-combo though. If you're good to them, they'll keep you alive.
Moving on to weapon shortcuts. We'll cover this from a controller-based setup. We don't recommend using a mouse and keyboard unless you have a 10-button MMO style mouse. Those kind of mice allow you to swap weapons and perform most intermediate and advanced techniques, but may still be problematic in space combat.
Attack combos are also affected when using keyboard and mouse. In most cases, having to take your fingers off the move keys to switch to the preferred weapon is not ideal.
Speaking of controls, make sure to set L1 to boost instead of X. This way you can boost while turning the camera on your right stick at the same time. Weapon shortcuts come down to your preference. Here are some setups that work for us. Just make sure to never disable any weapon. Every weapon needs a shortcut. In my example, I set the main shooting weapon as square and follow-up shooting weapon as X. My primary melee is set to triangle, and secondary melee, or secondary shooting, as circle. My finger naturally moves from top to bottom, which is why I move from square to X, or triangle to circle. Square X is always my Vulcan's, because I'm just strange like that.
An alternative setup for shortcuts goes as shown. For example, square is always my boost to shoot weapon, i.e. Vulcan's, follow funnels. X is always my follow-up weapon from stun. Think wrist rockets, second stun weapons, stand to shoot. Triangle is always my main melee weapon. Circle is always my special weapon or secondary melee weapon. Take note, the intent here is to have my split-second decision weapons on single button switches for fast responses to any situation. For the 2-button shortcuts, I have square X as my main ranged weapon, triangle circle as my situational weapon. Think smoke for stealth, surround funnels, alternate main weapon. Square triangle I have always set to weapons I take time to set up beforehand, i.e. starting from behind cover, or weapons I can naturally switch to through a combo cycle without using shortcut buttons. Circle X is always my least used weapon shortcut if 8 are provided, but there just in case the situation for use presents itself. Again, take note. These 2-button shortcuts were chosen for weapons I have time to think and switch to as the battle permits. I have my shortcuts set up this way so that I can reach each weapon quickly, as well as making each button combination ergonomic for my thumb, where square X and triangle circle are already form fit to snap to and move back to the analog stick quickly, versus square triangle and circle X being more involved for switching. You can set up shortcuts for weapons however you prefer, just make sure to have them set up to be the most effective in battle for you. Focus on having a setup that lets you combo efficiently, and feel free to use our shortcuts or a variation of them.
Since there's no voice chat, you should set these quick chats to communicate with your teammates. This is a primarily Japanese game, so it's common courtesy to start a match with "nice to meet you" and say "good work" at the end of the match, even if you lose. These translate to "yoroshiku" and "Otsukare." Sorry and "don't sweat it" are important too. If you friendly fire someone, say sorry. If you get friendly fired, say "don't sweat it." You want to show that you are mindful of your teammates, even if you make mistakes.
Exit the hangar and hit the ready to sortie button on the top left of your screen, and you're ready to go. We'll see you on the battlefield in the next video.
If this video helped, please like and subscribe. Maybe we'll even be able to pay our bills. Leave some feedback in the comments section and let us know what you want to see next. You can also stop by my weekend GBO2 streams on Twitch if you have any questions.